Let's start by talking about today. What's
Sure.
this day like? What have you learned from your touring around talking with students today?
Oh, I've learned I'm coming to a great place. I've spent a lot of time with students and faculty and more coming, but I keep asking people if they have any advice, and they mostly tell me it's a great place and don't mess it up, and that's what I intend to do. So.
It's an interesting point of view. Don't mess it up. Are you finding that the university is in a good position financially, academically? You're happy with where it is?
Yeah, I think it's so many good things have been done and invested in it by so many great people. I think there's a lot of change coming at it fast, and so if we don't adjust and change and get ahead of everything, I won't be doing a service to the place either. But first, I need to learn enough about the place so that I know what I'm doing.
That's a good point. What do you mean by a lot of change coming at it fast? What kinds of things are coming down the road?
So, I mean, we're primarily residential education of very high quality at a great private research university, and technology is changing that very fast, and the funding for research is changing very dramatically at the federal level and to some extent at the state level, and the cost is getting very tough for many people to afford, and given the changes in people coming out of high school now, we've got to adjust to all those things or we won't continue to be the best.
Talk about tuition. It's been on this constant move up to the point where any family, even one that's making a reasonable living, looks at the price tag of college tuition and says, I don't know how we're going to pay for it. Is that going to continue to be on this upward track for the foreseeable future?
I don't see how it can continue to go up as sharply as it has the last 2 decades. You know, Syracuse has been a real leader in accessibility and affordability for people, but I talk to a lot of students who still have lots of worries, and their parents, and so I think in the next 5 to 10 years how people finance going to the great private universities is going to change, and again we're going to have to continue to be ahead on that.
What did you learn? You spent a little time in the dorm.
Yes, I did. So,
had it been a while since you lived in a dorm?
You know, I'd stayed overnights in dorms a lot for conferences and things, but I hadn't lived in a dorm since 1977. So,
hopefully they've changed.
So, you know, some things have changed a lot. The food is better, but living in a dorm, I had many moments that brought back the same memories from the 1970s. And I was telling some students, it had been 30 years since I got up in the morning wondering whether I could wear a pair of socks again for the 3rd time. But there's a kind of wait for the washing machines in BBB that I had to be on top of. So.
And what about your current residence? You're spending a little time downtown for a while, too.
Yes, I'm living in an apartment on Armory Square right across from Most, and it's a wonderful neighborhood. So I'm getting to know that part of the central city better, which is wonderful.
Chancellor Cantor made it really her priority to integrate the university with the community, structures downtown, programs that connective corridor, the warehouse. What's your assessment of that, of where it stands as she leaves, and how do you think it can move forward still?
Well, I think it's been a very successful effort and just one part of a terrific legacy Chancellor Cantor has given this community. And I think we're going to have to continue it. We're going to have to continue investing in the community and making sure that people all around the world know it's the best place to live and the best university to go to. So I intend to do that. Exactly how we do it will change over the time as the change comes at us, but there's no question it was a brilliant strategy and has had so many great returns for this region.
What particular skills do you think you bring that can take the university maybe in a different or new direction, or be ready for those challenges that are coming?
So I guess I'm a listener and a learner. I like to talk to all sorts of people in all sorts of settings and get out of the bubble and hear what's really going on. And in leading change, I like to do it from a very deep knowledge of where people are at and hopefully leading everybody together rather than leading change through confrontation. And so I think the skill I bring is going to be listening very carefully to all sorts of people who have a stake in this university. And that's a wider group than in almost any metropolitan area in the world because of how deeply integrated the university is to every part of this community.
You talk about that. Have you been to the Carrier Dome for athletic events now?
Absolutely.
What's your impression?
I can't believe there's any better place to see a basketball game on the planet. It's just there's so many things that are better here than anywhere. And I think if you haven't lived here your whole life, sometimes you forget or don't even realize that it's better here than anywhere else. So even the North Carolina game, which I was at, was wonderful, but the Binghamton game was wonderful as well. The feeling of everybody pulling together and just helping pull that team to kind of flatten the competition is just wonderful. And it's wonderful whether you're in the student section or in the upper deck, and so it's great.
What do you know about plans for a new stadium or something where we're planning for the Dome's future? Will you change the Carrier Dome? Could there be a new stadium in Syracuse?
Yeah, I know a little bit about the plans. I've been briefed. I think what I know is that either the Carrier Dome will have to be improved substantially because it's nearing the end of its useful life, or we'll have to do something different. And I'm going to be working hard to identify the alternative that's in the best interest of the university. That could well be improving and renovating the Carrier Dome. It could be the university being a tenant in a stadium that somebody else builds. But whichever it is, it's got to be consistent with our history and with just an incredible number of people who have worked so hard to make the Carrier Dome successful as a venue. So I'm studying that right now. Obviously, it's on a lot of people's minds, but it's my first day, so you're going to have to give me another 30 seconds to form an opinion.
How far along do you think the plans are from the other group of people as opposed to renovating the Carrier Dome?
I don't think anything is even remotely close to a firm plan. And that's as it should be because there's too many stakeholders in the choices made. So there's just a lot of questions about the various alternatives. And I'm not the only one who's going to want to understand them thoroughly before we make a decision. But my position is going to be in what's consistent with a great private university that has great athletics. But there's other stakeholders that have very strong interests in what we do with the stadium as well.
Certainly, probably the black eye for this university the last few years was the case of Bernie Fine. Are you familiar with what happened there?
I'm familiar with some of it because if you followed sports, no matter where you were in the country, you read about it. But I can't say I've read every detail of it. All I can tell you about that is looking forward, who I am and how I approach similar things or similar crises should they arise, which is basically I'm a non-avoider. Okay, I believe in if you are aware of a problem, facing it directly, being transparent, and remembering who you're supposed to serve. And that's, for a great university, that's the students and the community that are part of it. And that's what I would do if anything similar arose in the future.
You mentioned this great community. What do you see as maybe the three things? You mentioned the Carrier Dome. The three things about this community that have stood out to you that are great and make it a great place that maybe those of us who lived here a long time don't fully appreciate.
Well, so I'm an upstater, so I didn't grow up in central New York, but I knew central New York very well growing up. And upstaters are the best people. I'll just say that. I don't know if you're a native, but upstaters combine the kind of directness of the East Coast and the decency of the Midwest. And so there aren't better people to work with, to have as neighbors, and to build a great institution around, or a great city around, if we work together. So that's the first and the most important thing, is the people here. It's the most beautiful place in the world, and you can travel. I've traveled all over, and I've worked at great places, but there's so many beautiful things nearby and such a deep history that anybody rational should want to live here. And that's the second thing. And I've lived in wonderful places, but this is the best. And I guess the third thing is there's just so many really neat, unique institutions and things here that nobody else has, and that Syracuse University is one of them. It's not like any other university. It's unique. But there's these unique places that have character. I mean, I tell people about Stella's and Liverpool, but there aren't that kind of diner. doesn't exist anywhere else anymore. There are, there's just so many examples of that, but it means that you can have a great life here, and really the best people from around the world should want to come here and stay here. And some of them do, but we got to talk about it more and make people know that.
As we wrap this up, chancellors usually on their way out have something named after them. Like you get the warehouse if you're Chancellor Cantor, you get Chancellor Eggers, Chancellor Tolley, they all have a building. Do you have any sense, will you be a building or will you be an idea or a program by the time your time is done here? How do you see yourself as down the road, a legacy that might be left behind?
So I don't like talking about me. Okay, I got a little sign right in front of me that I taped on my computer this morning that says it is not about me. So the question is, who's it about? So it's about the students. And so the most important thing will be when I'm stepping down, is it widely acknowledged that the student experience here is the best, and that the ability of great students, no matter what their background, to get a great education in any field is more true at Syracuse than almost anywhere on earth. Even though they have more money or they have their claimed better weather, they'll say, if you want to be a great student and a great graduate, this is the place to be. So that'll be it'll be about Syracuse and its students. It won't be about me, and they won't name a building or a particular favorite program for me. They'll talk about the students here.